The truth about good vibes only, Nietzsche's perspective. The sun that never sets is a desert. It sounds like paradise until you realize nothing grows there, and even your shadow has nowhere to hide. That is what good vibes only promises. An endless daylight that smooths out every sharp edge, disinfects every wound, and replaces the vast symphony of feeling with a single cheerful note. But if you listen closely, if you stand in that sterile sunshine long enough, you can hear something underneath it. A throb, a pressure, a faint knocking from behind the painted wall. What do we swallow when we accept the decree that only certain feelings are allowed? We pretend it's kindness. We drape it in softness. We tape the word positive over anxiety, over rage, over grief, and call it the mature thing to do. But there is a forbidden truth here, the kind you feel before you can explain it. Forced happiness can be a subtle kind of cruelty. It's the smile that says, "Your pain makes me uncomfortable. Could you please take it somewhere else?" Imagine a room full of warm light and white furniture, leafy plants, quartz crystals, and letters spelling out good vibes only in soft neon. The air smells like citrus and intentions. A hand-painted sign on the wall says never complain, never explain. The music is a gentle pulse that asks nothing from you. And through the glass, you glimpse a woman with red eyes and a folded letter in her hand, standing just outside the circle of glow. She hesitates. She walks away. If Friedrich Nietzsche were alive, he would see that woman. He would not stop her from crying. He would take her to a corner and listen to the words she's been trying to swallow. He would ask the dangerous questions. He would say, in that cutting, compassionate way, that he doesn't trust the kind of happiness that flinches at the sight of tears. He'd remind us that the Greeks, whom he adored, built their culture not on good vibes only, but on tragedy, on the knowledge that joy rooted in denial sprouts weak stems. He would tell us that a life without the night sky grows inwardly dull, and that it is not strength to banish sorrow, but fear. Good vibes only seems gentle. Nietzsche would hear a command in those words. The soothing tone hides an ultimatum. Be pleasant or be silent. And commands, in his universe, are never neutral. They reveal who is strong and who is afraid, who is arranging reality to avoid being disturbed. Every morality, he once argued, is the handwriting of a tribe's secret needs. What does ours say, inked in pastel? Perhaps that we have built a world as fast and smooth as a glass screen, and because we cannot slow it down, we try to sanitize the human heart instead. There is a reason this phrase appears in cafes, yoga studios, and office break rooms with motivational quotes printed above the juice bar. It's the same reason we see it under photos of sunrises, smoothies, and firm abdominals. The machinery of our time loves stability and soothing. Algorithms prefer smiles. They reward agreeable faces. People who buy things impulsively feel better when they're assured the universe approves. Employers love a workforce that doesn't complain because silence is efficient. And so a gentle slogan pours itself into every corner until it becomes the air. If you object, you look like the one bringing in bad weather. Nietzsche lived in pain. His head throbbed, his stomach sickened, his eyes burned. He paced through empty rooms like an animal in a cage, and he laughed. He loved dancing metaphors. He loved the image of a spirit that turns its own suffering into music because it refuses to be mastered by it. He did not hate happiness. He distrusted comfort that pretended to be a truth. The truth he stalked was darker and worth more. It was the insight that life includes both the beautiful and the terrible, and that to experience the deepest joy, you have to grant the deepest suffering a seat at the table. Good vibes only throws that guest out and locks the door. It confuses nervousness with safety. It calls numbness peace. Like a mouth smiling while the jaw tightens, it leaks anxiety through the cracks. If you think this is only a language problem, consider the rituals we've built around it. A gratitude challenge that starts to feel like forced worship. The team meeting where people fear to admit exhaustion and instead recite affirmations between bites of branded almonds. The friend who stops calling because they don't know how to be messy around you anymore. The child who cries in their room because they heard you say, "We're a happy family," and concluded their sadness must be a symptom of being ungrateful. Nietzsche's gaze, sharp as a scalpel, would cut through these rituals and name what they are. Artifacts of a culture that mistrusts the wildness of its own depths. A culture that favors applause from the balcony over risky performances on stage. A culture of the last men, his phrase for those who blink instead of burning, who prefer little pleasures, tidy, predictable, comfortable, and anesthetized. They say, "Don't make a fuss." They say, "Let's be realistic." They say, "Good vibes only." They stare at the sun of constant reassurance and begin to call their blindness wisdom. But what if the opposite of despair is not cheer but courage? What if the opposite of fear is not a smile, but a yes that includes the possibility of loss? Nietzsche would tell us a strange thing, that your life becomes more yours when you stop selecting only the bright pieces. That your joy grows roots when it is allowed to touch the dark. Perhaps the first step to seeing through the charm of good vibes only is to feel the insult it gives to the rawness inside you. Your grief is not a mistake. Your anger is not garbage to be composted into a forced positive lesson before it has said what it came to say. Your melancholy might be telling you where beauty hides. Your fear might be pointing to the thing you need to build. And if a sign tells you to bring only the good vibes, do not always obey. Sometimes the medicine is in the refusal. We will not dishonor happiness. We will defy the idea that happiness is safe only when it is shallow. In a moment, we will follow the current beneath the smooth surface, the mechanisms, the motives, the soft power that turns positivity into a pressure. We'll walk into the quiet rooms where no one is allowed to cry, and we will count the cost. Nietzsche as our guide, we will ask whether this soothing culture isn't secretly a prison, whether the bars are covered in velvet. And we will ask a better question still. If not good vibes only, then what kind of yes to life is worthy of us? There are offices where a bowl of lemons sits under a chalkboard that says, "When life gives you lemons, demand tequila." People laugh on command. Somebody from HR, voice like a warm blanket, invites everyone to share one thing you're grateful for today before the sales forecast. A man named Jacob says his dog. A woman named Maya says her health. A third says coffee. The circle nods. Then they open their laptops and quietly change the color of their exhaustion. There is a gym where the coach yells, "You're killing it." And the music slams away the panic in your joints. And for an hour, you can pretend your life is pure momentum. There is a meditation app that assures you every thought is a cloud, even the one that tells you your mother is getting worse. Breathe in, breathe out, be positive. There is a camera constantly pointed at you, from your own hand asking for your best angles. Edit sorrow. Crop it out. Color correct your face, as if feeling ever needed approval. Good vibes only is our incense. It burns invisibly in the background of our daily rituals. The scent says you are safe, because nothing messy can happen here. But look again, and you start to see the fine print. The demand for constant positivity is not only emotional, it is economic. It keeps transactions seamless, teams harmonious, consumers available. It discourages dissent, not with a threat, but with warmth. It says, don't worry, just flow. Nietzsche would have sniffed around this, and then he would have growled. He was never gentle with the moralities that present themselves as harmless, because he believed their gentleness could be deceit. In his genealogies of values, he hunted the origin stories. Why do we call this good? Who benefits from it? Not to reduce everything to power, but to reveal where power hides in virtue's clothing. Imagine a startup whose core value is positivity. They hang posters. Choose happy. There is a policy against complaining, reframed as a commitment to solution orientation. But when a junior engineer points out that the product gathers too much user data, the team lead suggests she adjust her attitude. We're about creating joy, he says, not negativity. She nods, then cries in the stairwell. She updates her resume in the shadow of a mural that reads, smile more, worry less. Now imagine a family after dinner. The parents are trying to be modern and peaceful. One of them says, remember, we don't say negative things. The teenage son looks away. He is thinking about the friend who stopped texting and the empty chair in class. He's thinking about the fight he had with his own face in the mirror. He says nothing. He's learned that silence is the price of belonging. He palms it like a coin and pays it again and again. We think good vibes only is harmless, but it becomes a needle threaded through 1,000 small decisions, closing mouths, softening truths, making conversation smooth where it should be rough. Nietzsche warned about the soft tyranny of the herd, not the loyal, loving herd of animals, but a human herd that aches so strongly for comfort, it asks the world to stop being sharp. The herd, he thought, calls the wolf evil and the thorn rude. It measures the good by what doesn't upset it. He distinguished between two moral climates. There is a kind of morality born of overflowing strength, where the good means generous, daring, creative, able to promise and to keep the promise. And there is a kind born from resentment, where the good is simply what doesn't threaten me. The first is an athlete that runs because they can. The second nails the track to the ground, so no one else moves too fast. Which climate does good vibes only belong to? Feel the gentle nail in that phrase. It wants movement to slow. It wants a world that doesn't disturb it. We can see how this plays out online. The algorithm loves smoothness. Anger erupts, yes, but the anger that spreads is theatrical, pre-approved, easy to digest. The sadness that plays well is a sadness that ends with a brand partnership and a discount code. Good vibes only doesn't necessarily ban negativity. It monetizes it into content. It keeps the edges, but rounds them so they can pass through the feed without snagging. We start to experience ourselves as product managers of our own emotions. What will perform? What will please? What will keep the room temperature comfortable? There are also the retreats where negativity is a toxin, and the cure is to sit in silence for 3 days with strangers and never once say, out loud, the exact reason your heart hurts. It sounds noble. It often helps. But when silence becomes a way to avoid saying anything difficult to anyone ever again, it calcifies into avoidance in spiritual robes. The new ascetics don't wear hair shirts. They wear linen. They drink green juice and discipline their faces into sereness. They talk about detachment and never mention the erotic, the tragic, the grimy. Nietzsche would have recognized this as the old sickness of self-denial with better branding. Under the soft light, something hard grows, a moral censor. If you speak bitterness, you feel guilty. If you grieve too long, you suspect you're failing. If you rage, you apologize for the energy of it instead of asking what rules need to be broken. You begin to police not only your feelings, but your words and even your eyes, the way they might widen at a truth, and you narrow your own gaze until everything looks reasonable. It is efficient. It stops fights. It preserves the relationship. It also hollows your gut. In this climate, what becomes of genuine transformation? Nietzsche loved creation, the birth of new values, new selves. He believed it demanded confrontation with whatever had the power to break you first. He predicted that a culture obsessed with comfort would produce souls that cannot make promises, because promises require the capacity to endure pain, to absorb failure, to take responsibility for one's own history. The good vibes only person looks like they have it together. But can they stand in the wind? Can they tell the truth when the room frowns? Can they do what matters even when their body shakes? A question begins to hum, an unsettling one. Maybe good vibes only is not a celebration of happiness, but a defense against life. And defenses, he thought, are not bad when they are honest. The trouble begins when a defense becomes a principle, when a coping mechanism becomes a costume, and the costume becomes a creed, when therapy terms become a weapon against inconvenient human feelings, when positive thinking useful as a tool becomes a morality that exiles anything that smells like a storm. We keep going like this, and soon the weather inside is always 72 degrees. We never sweat. We never shiver. We move from air-conditioned home to climate-controlled office to gently heated yoga studio. We harden, not in courage, but in fragility. A single draft gives us a cold. The strange guest, the grief, the fear, the rage bangs harder at the door. Someone puts on the music louder. Nietzsche, from the corner, raises a finger. He wants to tell us a story about the Greeks and their tragic festivals, about sipping wine while dancing on the edge of a cliff, about how art pointed at the abyss and said yes anyway. He is going to propose something that sounds like heresy to the modern ear, that the answer to bad vibes is not good vibes only. The answer is a larger yes. Suppose a demon slips into your room at night and whispers, "This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more. Every joy, every humiliation, every quiet afternoon, every hospital hallway. Would you throw yourself on the ground, grind your teeth, and curse the demon? Or would you answer, 'You are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine'?" Nietzsche offered that thought experiment as a test of one's ability to affirm life, not in selective highlight reels, but in the thick. Good vibes only fails the test because it is not a yes to life. It is a yes to a mood. The difference matters. A mood is weather temporary, manageable, subject to purchase. Life is climate vast, unpredictable, including storms you cannot vote out. The slogan entices us toward mood management. Nietzsche drags us toward climate acceptance. He suspects that enduring joy, the kind that doesn't require constant reinforcement, emerges not from controlling what you feel, but from consenting to everything that has made you, including what once undid you. He spoke of two gods that structure art and being, the Apollonian, all light, form, clarity, and order. And the Dionysian, all frenzy, darkness, ecstasy, and collapse. The finest cultures didn't choose one god. They learned to let both sing through them, order flowing near the edge of chaos, beauty cast against terror, harmony containing the scream. Good vibes only is the Apollonian in exile's dream. Light without shadow, form without danger, relief without risk. It numbs the Dionysian, but the body remembers. The body remembers everything. The cleaned-up world looks like progress. It's cleverer than yesterday. It's more ergonomic. We treat it as evolution. Nietzsche worried that what we call progress often hides a flight from intensity. There is a way to be civilized that is really a training in avoidance. It reads as kindness less from love and more from fear. When the Dionysian gets silenced long enough, it returns as a panic attack, or as a midnight purchase of something you don't need, or as a sudden cruelty to someone you love, or as a collapse so complete that your affirmations sound like mockingbirds circling your bed. His alternative is not negativity. It is a deeper positivity, amor fati, the love of one's fate, not resignation to fate, not doom. Love? He meant an attitude that says, let it be as it is. Let the suffering be what it is. Let the joy be what it is. Do not turn away. Find, if you can, the posture that says yes so thoroughly that even the painful parts find their place in your mouth and taste like bread. This is not romantic. It is referencing the home you build in the ruins after you've stopped pretending the earthquake didn't happen. He spoke of the will to power, which is often misunderstood as domination over others. He meant something subtler and more terrifying, the drive of a thing to become what it is. A plant pushing toward light, a mind pushing toward truth, a life pushing toward greater complexity and intensity. Under this lens, good vibes only is not just saccharine, it is anesthetic. It tells the plant to remain in the soil because stretching toward the sun looks uncomfortable. It tells the mind to prefer opinions that smooth its nerves. It rewards a self that doesn't grow because growth looks impolite. The ascetic ideal for Nietzsche is the old religious instinct that said, life is dangerous and corrupt. Better to mortify the flesh, suppress desires, deny the senses, and hope for reward elsewhere. He thought that the priestly class turned their own weakness into a weapon by declaring strength a sin. When he looks at our culture, he wouldn't see monks whipping themselves in stone cells. He would see lifestyle gurus disciplining their feeds and calling their curated silence wisdom. He would see a secular asceticism, a refusal of the tragic that still uses the moral tone. When you feel negative, don't express it. Transmute it into a charming post about resilience. When you're angry, don't raise your voice. Raise your vibe. When someone is grieving, don't sit with them in the mud. Send them a quote. Amor fati, by contrast, doesn't demand that you be polite to pain. It invites you to wrestle it, and if you lose, to laugh as you pick yourself up, and if you win, to know that victory will someday be taken away. It invites you to imagine the demon in your room, and to answer, not as a performance, but as a consecration. Yes, again, and again, and again. It asks you to become the kind of person who could say yes to that. Not easily, not quickly, but eventually, by building a soul strong enough to endure its own history without hating it. Nietzsche's critique of slave morality makes many bristle because it sounds like cruelty. He isn't saying compassion is bad. He is saying compassion without courage becomes passive aggression with a halo. Resentment, in his analysis, is when you cannot act, and so you blame. Good vibes only can be the form resentment takes when it cannot tolerate the agents of truth, the messy, the pained, the enraged. It declares them bad vibes and returns to the couch of pleasantness. Meanwhile, resentment accumulates in secret, an acidic tank that spills in sudden deluges. What would a healthier, more Nietzschean positivity look like? It would sound less like a rule and more like a song. It would not insist. It would entice. It would include laughter that grew out of tears and thus didn't fear them anymore. It would not say, bring only good. It would say, bring everything, and we will make something with it. It would treat anger not as a contaminant, but as a clue. It would treat sorrow not as an error, but as a seam in the earth where water waits. It would be generous and demanding at the same time. Let's return to the teenager in that family. When he finally speaks and says, "I'm not okay," the room changes temperature. His mother looks scared. His father reaches for the old tool, positivity. We have so much to be grateful for. If the father were a student of Nietzsche's rough tenderness, he might try something else. He might say, "Tell me everything without editing it for my comfort." He might go silent when the boy says the ugliest thoughts and resist the urge to iron them flat. He might say afterward, "I am strong enough to hear all of it and mean it." That sentence has good vibes. Real ones, hard-earned. Now the engineer. She writes an email to leadership with detail and moral clarity. She's called negative. She replies, "No, I'm faithful." Faithful to what? To a value larger than comfort, larger than short-term share, price faithful to the truth that users are human beings, to the idea that a product that erodes trust erodes the souls of the people who build it. She's told to smile more. She smiles less, and she endures the cold shoulder. That feeling? Those are not bad vibes. Those are the sacred shivers of someone living in alignment. Nietzsche believed you could turn the heaviest weight, the thought of your life returning eternally, into the heaviest joy. Not as philosophy class, as prayer. The difference between sugary optimism and tragic affirmation is all the difference. That gap is the distance between a motivational poster and a painting that stops you breathing because it shows your face as you are. One is always on sale. The other costs your life. And in trading for it, you get your life back. Perhaps Good Vibes Only was an understandable attempt to make a rough world easier to live in. But if you apply the pressure of Nietzsche's questions to it, something cracks and something luminous shows. Maybe we have been afraid of a kind of beauty that requires darkness to see it. Maybe we have been scheduling away the moments that would have made us into people worthy of our own admiration. Maybe the most radical positivity in the world is to open the door when the storm arrives and say, "Come in, let's talk." Grief has a smell. It's not poetic. It's the sour of unwashed hair, the metallic hint of keys clenched too long, the cold of a seat you cannot leave, because leaving would acknowledge that what happened actually happened. The room where it lives is not an Instagram room. Nietzsche would not flee that room. He would stand there and, with a fierce gentleness, ask us to bear it without shame. There is a funeral where the family requests bright colors only. They want a celebration of life. It makes sense. It's a way to keep from drowning. It also pressures everyone into pretending they can swim. A man in a yellow shirt stares at the ceiling while the slideshow plays, and he feels an animal inside him clawing through his ribs. He had planned to tell his father one more thing. He didn't. Now the party playlist moves to an upbeat track. He nods and smiles. Later, he will rage at his wife because she bought the wrong yogurt. His friends will say he's acting out. He will whisper apologies and go back to work and arrange himself like furniture. If someone had told him it was okay to be ugly there, if someone had said, "Don't worry about the vibe, worry about your soul," he might have dropped the cup in his hand. He might have fallen to the floor. He might have said the sentence he'd been holding for 19 years. He might have set down a weight and been free enough to carry the rest. That is the kind of moment good vibes only aborts. It confuses the atmosphere of an event with the purpose of a life. We do this not because we are evil, but because we are scared. Nietzsche's gift is the permission to be unafraid of being afraid. He doesn't romance suffering. He strips it of reputation and calls it by its simple name, heart of the price. Everyone pays with something. Some pay it all at once. Some pay in installments. The question isn't whether you'll be charged. The question is whether you'll turn over your credit card in secret and keep smiling, or put the bill on the table and say, "This is how much it costs me to be a human being, and I am not ashamed." There is a woman who grew up in a home where sadness was a fire hazard. Her mother woke up early to light positivity candles, pancakes, praise, tightly made beds, a brightness that cut your skin if you stared too long. The rule was simple. Don't bring dark clouds into this house. The woman learned to bolt her anger under the sink, to swallow her tears like pills, to call her loneliness independence. She got straight A's. She was praised for her resilience. In her 30s, her body begins to leak. She doesn't understand why she wakes with a weight on her chest. She downloads an app that vibrates when it's time to practice gratitude. Then something breaks in a hospital. She cannot force her face into decency. It shatters. An ugly cry leaves her throat like a creature escaping. She is embarrassed. She is relieved. Someone draws the curtain and tells her quietly, "There is nothing wrong with your weather." She stares. The sentence is a miracle. It is permission to stop performing survival as a mood and start practicing it as a truth. Later, when her friend tells her, "You're so strong," she says, "I'm not. I'm with it. Not strong like stone. Strong like grass that keeps growing through the concrete." This is what Nietzsche calls for when he invites us to be worthy of our suffering, not to fetishize it, not to make it a badge, to earn from it, to let it carve capacities in us that can hold heavier joys. He loved laughter because he knew tears are its foundation. He loved dance because he loved gravity first. He wanted our yes to life to be so complete it made us mischievous, because nothing could scare us anymore into politeness. His most outrageous image is the dancing star born from a chaos carried in the belly. He knows exactly what we are frightened of. He suggests we become strong enough to stop being frightened of being frightened. There is a hospice where a nurse sits on the edge of a bed while 6 machines murmur. Her hands are cracked from sanitizing. On her lunch break, she watches videos of people going to beaches with captions about manifesting abundance. She smiles at them like one smiles at birds. She goes back, clipboards ready, and knows that what she does is not glamorous. It is luminous. Under the fluorescent lights, she embodies the deepest good vibe there is, steady attention to the real. Her presence says, "I will not abandon you because your body has become inconvenient." That is the opposite of the no negativity rule. It is the bring the worst of it, and I'll stay rule. There is a climber on a face of rock, fingers numb, wind like a blade in his ribs. He finds a ledge and breathes loud and ugly into the valley. He loves this, not the pain, exactly. The density of being alive while he bears it. He understands that control is borrowed and that the mountain does not care. Nietzsche's joy would live there, not because it's extreme, but because it is honest about reality and about what it takes. He would prefer the absurdity of that effort to the smoothness of a life that avoids friction and calls avoidance wisdom. If you want to test your instincts, try this. You encounter a friend who brings you their hurt, like a bowl they cannot carry. Do you try to lighten the bowl by telling them the bright side? Or do you strengthen their arms by holding the bowl with them without adding sugar? The first is easy. The second is love. It will drag out your own discomfort. It will remind you of what you've been hiding from. It will force you to confront if your positivity has been a way of avoiding involvement. The astounding secret at the heart of all this is that the deeper yes makes for better days, not just deeper nights. People who allow themselves to be wrecked properly by grief also laugh more unguardedly. People who don't outsource their anger to slogans can use it as a tool, like a hammer that builds, rather than a grenade that explodes in the kitchen. People who respect their fear can tell the difference between danger and novelty. That difference saves marriages, companies, lives. Good vibes only shrinks our world. Tragic affirmation widens it. You begin to enjoy the weather even when it is inconvenient. You begin to listen to music you used to skip. You stop walking around with a thermostat for other people's feelings. You realize your job is not to manage the atmosphere, but to live in truth. You leave parties earlier. You show up to hospitals without flowers and with endurance. You change your mind out loud. You unlearn the face you thought was your face and discover your original one beneath it. It looks like a person who has survived and is not sorry for it. Nietzsche is accused of hardness. He deserves it sometimes. But the hardness is there to cut away the layers that prevent tenderness from landing. He wants a sweetness with a spine, a joy with dirt under its fingernails, a love that is brave enough to include the parts of you the world prefers you hide. That love stares at good vibes only and shakes its head like a parent who knows the child is pretending not to hear the thunder. Come, it says, opening the window. This is part of it. The night after the storm, you pass a shop window. The sign is still there. Good vibes only, glowing a gentle, defiant pink, like a small city keeping out the wilderness. Behind the glass, bowls, candles, tiny books with large fonts. Outside, puddles hold cereal moons. Your face rises in them and ripples. You think of the demon in your room, the eternal return, the thought that offended you because it asked you to love your life without editing. You think of the woman with the folded letter who didn't step into the neon. You think of the engineer, the teenager, the man in yellow. You think of your own mouth asking to be honest, and your own hands begging to be kind, and your own fear of making others cold. You stand still and listen for the pressure behind everything. The knocking continues. You feel how much of your life has been spent padding doors. There is a candle you can light that is not a slogan. It is a sentence that lives in the back of your throat and melts your teeth when you say it. I will not compare my insides to your outsides. The room adjusts. You stop writing little speeches in your head to avoid a conflict that might exist only there. You begin to ask questions that give permission instead of instructions. What hurts? What do you need? What would you say if you trusted me to handle it? The answers rot the sign a little from the edges. You begin to measure your day differently, not by how pleasant it was, but by how much reality you allowed to find you. Did you hold the bowl with someone? Did you make an ugly noise you didn't apologize for? Did you refuse to make a truth smaller to fit a vibe? Did you choose a yes that cost you? You begin to judge leaders by their capacity to absorb the full weather of their people without preaching umbrellas. You begin to take your own advice. For the first time in months, you sleep. The next time someone tells you to think positive, you don't argue. You smile, but not with your face. You think of the Apollonian and the Dionysian, those two gods in you, the organizer and the wild thing, and you invite them to eat at the same table. You ask Apollo to bring the cutlery and Dionysus to bring the wine. You say grace that includes the dead. You take responsibility for your own atmosphere, not as censorship, but as art. You arrange your day like a painter arranging a canvas, not avoiding dark paint, but using it to make the light luminous. Nietzsche is difficult to carry. He knew that. The gift of his difficulty is the way it makes you choose. You can choose to be offended by his contempt for comfortable lies and return to the low couch of soothing. Or you can accept the dare and see what happens to your life when you stop excluding anything. You might become unbearable to some. You might become a sanctuary to others. You will interrupt conversations, end some, deepen others. You will be accused of being a downer, and sometimes you will be. And you will also be the person people call at 2 a.m. when the hospital light is fragile and they can't find the floor with their feet. Should we throw away joy? No. We should put it where it belongs, not on a sign, but in the way we look at one another when we are not hiding. Joy should be the flavor of attention. It should be the manner in which you carry your pain, not a trick to make it disappear. We should rediscover celebration not as a pill, but as a ceremony for having faced what was required. We should go back to the Greeks, as Nietzsche did, not to copy them, but to learn again how to sing at the edge of the cliff. The sign in the window will not change tonight. It doesn't need to. You change. You carry a different weather. You refuse to exhale mint over a wound that needs air. You learn to love your fate, not because it has been kind, but because it has been yours. You set down the performance of constant brightness, not to become them, but to become a musician who can play more than one key. Soon you see the phrase everywhere and it loses its power. It becomes a confession rather than a command. Good vibes only, translated. I am afraid of what I cannot fix. You answer with a new creed that is not printed on anything, because it lives and breathes. Bring everything. Bring the rage with clean edges that builds, not breaks. Bring the grief that does not ask to be rushed. Bring the fear that cares enough to warn you. Bring the joy that has earned its laugh lines. Bring the absurd that makes breakfast sacred. Bring the love that arrives without perfume. Not every room deserves all of you. Some rooms should be left to their neon. That's also part of wisdom. But in the rooms you choose, set the rule by your presence. Refuse the smallness. Refuse the performance. Refuse to meet yourself only in mirrors that flatter. Walk with a demon. Make a bed for it. Ask it to tell the story again. Somewhere in the retelling, you will stop trying to manage the vibe and begin to live the life. The distinction is so quiet you might miss it. Only your body will know, loosening its fists. Only your friends will know, visiting more often. Only your future will know, unfolding with thicker pages. The sun sets. The desert cools. In the East, the hint of another day. No one is asking you to be unhappy. No one is demanding you reenact tragedy. The invitation is older and kinder, to be fully alive. That will invite winds. It will carve your face. It will burn off quantities of sentimentality you thought you needed to be loved. What remains will look, to some, like a ruin. To others, it will look like a cathedral with the roof off, open to weather, letting in the stars. If this opened your eyes, subscribe to Boring History, because the truth is never boring.